out. Everybody.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lights Out Podcast, baby. I'm your host, Josh.
And I'm your host, Austin.
And I'm the producer, Daniel.
And if you believe in the paranormal, boy, do we got an episode for you today.
Oh, yeah.
Because, one of the, we talk a lot about haunted houses. We talk a lot about, even possession of human beings. But we don't get into more of like physical manifestations of the paranormal, which I find very interesting, where it's like very hard to explain. It's like, and like people will chalk it up to hoaxes sometimes, but
Sure.
Most of the times with those types of manifestations, I have a very hard time believing they're hoaxes.
Yeah, and the closest I think we've covered to something like this is like our Cursed Objects episode and the Haunted Paintings episode way back. But yeah, we don't often cover these, but they're quite interesting. And some people, even, if it's paranormal or not, whatever, some people find it to be like divination. Like God is doing something to physical objects as a way to reveal himself or something else, to send a message, which I find interesting. Marian apparitions and such.
Yeah.
And then you're like, some people are like, no, this is a demon.
Yeah.
It's
not always evil.
Yeah.
It could be God revealing himself to you in a very strange way. You
Yeah.
never know. So we're going to be talking about a number of different objects and different sort of manifestations here throughout this episode, including one that I've wanted to talk about for a while, the Hope Diamond, as supposedly very cursed, and the history surrounding this thing kind of explains why in a lot of ways. So very, very interesting episode for you. And some of these are just downright terrifying. So get ready. If you're scared of the paranormal, too bad.
Get some clean britches nearby.
You're not ready for this. So starting off, let's talk about the Faces of Belmez. In August 1971, so we're going back a little bit in time here, the town of Belmez in southern Spain experienced a frightening manifestation in a family's home. Local resident and medium Maria Gomez Camara discovered an odd discoloration on her concrete kitchen floor. And no, it wasn't just poop.
Because that's usually what's in the kitchen.
It's usually what it is, right? But at first, it was nothing more than just a small mark. But after a few days, it began to change and darken. And soon it took the shape and face of a woman. It's pretty weird. Maria did her best to scrub this discoloration out of the floor. But no matter how much she cleaned and she scrubbed, this haunting image remained. I will admit, this is kind of creepy.
It is.
You can clearly see the outline of a face. It looks like roughly like a body attached to it, and this kind of like black cloud, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
Almost like it's emerging out of like the shadows in a way on your kitchen floor. And so imagine seeing, your family member scrubbing away at this thing and it doesn't go away. What would you think?
Like, have we tried? I don't know.
Should we get some bleach?
Yeah, get the ammonia. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be terrifying.
So they've already been trying to clean this for quite a while. And they were very disturbed and very frustrated that this face would not go away. But her husband, Juan, and their son, Miguel, tore up the concrete with a pickaxe and then re-cemented the floor. But guess what? A week later, that creepy face reappeared the same as before. Coincidence? What do you even make of that? I mean, that's just on a whole other level. Something else is going on here. But the news of the phenomenon reached the town's mayor, and he forbade this new face from being destroyed, but instead had it examined. Early reports claimed that no paint or tampering with the concrete was detected. The family insisted that the faces were not a hoax. While researchers inspected the concrete floor, a shocking discovery was made below. Right below this concrete floor was a set of human remains that were discovered, and the family was completely unaware that these human remains were there at all. That is really wild. Anthropological studies found that a Catholic cemetery was once in the region near the family home back in the 1800s. So it's believed that the cemetery had fallen to ruins and a housing development took over the area, which is wrong, if you ask me. But with no regard for the area's history, they just built homes all over this cemetery. And over time, not only did this first face reappear, but several more faces appeared beside it. And then soon, a mural of figures and faces appeared on the floor. Some were more terrifying than others, and many assumed that the faces appearing on the floor had to have come from the people who were buried beneath. The house eventually became known as La Casa de las Caras, or the House of the Faces. And some believe the faces are a result of thoughtography, which this is an idea that originally came from Japan, where some force has the ability to imprint images from one's mind onto surfaces. It's also been called projected thermography, and this ability can affect physical surfaces, especially film. And some claim that Maria was somehow using this ability without even realizing it. Wow, really getting wild here. Then in the 70s, a Spanish parapsychologist claimed that some sections of the floor were sealed off with plastic, yet the images on the floor continued to change. And this suggested that something paranormal had to be going on, possibly thoughtography.
Others believe this phenomenon is the product of, like I said earlier, divine miracle.
We don't want to think it's something evil or malicious.
Yeah. Similar to Our Lady of Absam in the late 1700s, the face of the Virgin Mary became etched into a window pane in Austria. Reportedly, an 18-year-old girl named Rosina Bucher first discovered the image while she was sitting at her dinner table sewing, and she called her mother when she noticed, and they saw what looked like the Virgin Mary weeping. To get a good glimpse of this.
I mean, that's really defined.
Yeah, right.
Clearly a face.
Yeah.
Eyes, mouth, nose.
And in one report, the image was actually wiped away with some form of cleaning solution, but apparently the image still reappeared afterward. And those who inspected the image could not remove it with chemicals, with rubbing, like friction, or even a mirror grinder with polish. Apparently the image would always return. This image was actually later enshrined in St. Michael's Church in Absam. Many believe it's the product of a miracle and has the ability to heal people in close proximity. Some have even called it a, quote, Polaroid from heaven. The Faces of Belmez was not treated with such reverence, though. The odd mural was basically seen as a more haunting image rather than a miracle, but either way, no one could explain its creation. Many skeptics believe the Faces of Belmez are a hoax that the family created for financial gain. It's often the big critique of many paranormal manifestations, right? Some claim it's simply a phenomenon called pareidolia, where you can see shapes, patterns, or faces in random things, like how you can see a face in a cloud. Some believe that organic materials such as lead and chromium, or soot and vinegar, could have been used to create these images. Some have suggested that some sort of oxidizing chemical agent was used to create the images when exposed to sunlight. In one study dating back in the 70s, infrared photography detected pigmentation over the original appearance, meaning that there was once an original unexplained marking on the floor, but it had been emphasized and adjusted with pigmentation. Apparently, in this study of it, even paintbrush bristles could reportedly be seen in this photography. Other skeptics have proposed that the faces were not painted at all. The spaces around the area that are blank were actually possibly removed, leaving the organic markings behind on the floor. So if you think of it, if the whole floor was maybe black, and then they actually cleaned off what was blank, rather than someone drawing in the dark spots. But even then, it's still not clear what was used to clear those lighter areas. And in 2014, that's how long this has been going on. They're still studying this. The faces were re-examined using infrared scanning and electron microscopes, and samples were extracted with the owner's permission. The analysis used a doctor in chemical engineering and a forensic criminalist, and the studies could not find inorganic materials such as paint. The report also stated that, quote, according to scientific knowledge and techniques employed in the analysis, there is no external manipulation or elements in the faces. The study also attempted to actually reproduce similar images to the faces, but they couldn't. And the woman who discovered the faces, Maria, passed away in 2004 at 85 years old. Some claim that new faces appeared after her death, but those reports have since been debunked. However, the original faces in the floor still remain, and people can even see them to this day.
This is one of the rare cases where it has been heavily studied.
Yeah.
And no one can seem to figure out.
Can't really understand what's going on.
There's nothing that explains it away as man-made or a hoax.
Yeah, because even the proposed ideas of like, well, it could be this or it actually could be that, they've never been able to prove that it was that, you know?
And it feels like it's just like, why would the family do this? This is a lot of work to...
True.
You know, most people that hoax don't necessarily go to great lengths to pull something off, whereas this seems like it would take a lot of precision,
right,
a lot of time to really get this right.
And I even tried to look up like, oh, were they hosting tours for the moolah, or how were they profiting from this? And I actually really couldn't find any source that was saying how they were profiting from it. I mean, also the house, it seemed like from that area, it's not like a nice house or anything. Like these people weren't rich by any means, but I couldn't really find if the people were going to claim it was a hoax because they were trying to make money. I couldn't even find evidence of that. So who the hell knows what's going on here?
Well, and just with the location alone, I think if there's anywhere that's going to have paranormal, especially a physical manifestation exist, it's going to be on ground.
Desecrated.
Desecrated ground where, you know, a graveyard used to exist.
Right.
There was human remains there.
Right.
And so, I don't know. This one I definitely tend to lean more towards believing in, because there's really nothing to explain it.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Austin, but these days I feel like it's so easy to start spiraling about your health.
Always. I always feel like I'm just riddled with disease.
And just with social media, you're scrolling through, your phone's listening to you. So then all of a sudden, you know, your social media is telling you about some rare disease you might have.
Yep.
The spiraling just gets completely out of control.
I was once almost convinced I had like a huge parasite in my organs because of social media. Then I just took a step back, took a deep breath, and got on ZocDoc to go check it with my PCP.
But sometimes it can be hard to find the right one, because they make it so difficult to find a doctor who's actually available, who takes your insurance. It's such a game. It's frustrating. You call the office, they're at lunch. They don't pick up. They're full. They don't have appointments for the next 3 months. It's a very frustrating experience, at least here in the US. And ZocDoc really just takes all of that stress off of you. The doctors and providers are already plugged into ZocDoc's platform. So through ZocDoc's app or the website, you can find the right professional who's got the remedy for what you need.
Yes. And even if it is scheduled a little bit out with ZocDoc, I've never had to worry on something going wrong or something being canceled. It's such a reliable service that I've used at least, I think, 4 times now, actually, to find appointments. And they've never let me down.
Yeah, it's the only way to find a doctor, I feel like, because it's just, the insurance websites are so confusing and most of them don't work for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. But ZocDoc, you can search by specialties. So they've got dentists, they've got OBGYNs, they've got psychologists, they've got psychiatrists, therapists. Maybe you need an optometrist. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can find and book, compare high quality in-network doctors and click instantly to book an appointment. That's the great thing about it. You find the doctor, you see real patient reviews, and they only show you the doctors that are in network because you can put your insurance information in there. And so you know all of the providers you're looking at actually take your insurance. There's no surprises when you get there and they're like, oh, sorry, we billed you without insurance. So here's a giant bill.
I've never had that happen through ZocDoc.
It's the worst. And you can get an appointment within 24 to 72 hours. Usually, sometimes you can even score same day appointments, which is just amazing, like urgent care. Maybe you need an urgent care. ZocDoc can help you find one that is available right then and there. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/lightsout to find and instantly book a top rated doctor today.
That's ZocDoc.com/lightsout. ZocDoc.com/lightsout.
Lights out. But this unexplained physical paranormal phenomenon only existed for a brief period of time, and although its appearance was fleeting, it has left many wondering, what the fuck, for 170 years. In the cold winter of 1855 in South Devon, England, a heavy snowfall covered Exe estuary on the south coast on February 8th. It had been a harsh winter, and it was so cold that the thermometer was 1 degree lower than has ever been known by the oldest inhabitant. The surrounding rivers had frozen over, allowing the locals to play games on the ice, but it wasn't all fun and games. Many suffered from the extremely harsh cold, and the winter had become very isolating. After the heavy snowfall that night, cold rain, wind, and morning frost followed, and by the early morning hours just before sunrise, some villagers had noticed long tracks of bizarre footprints in the snow, but these footprints could not be identified. Many thought that they were similar to a donkey's hoof, but not exactly. They were discovered across large areas of Devon. Each track appeared in generally shallow snow between 1/2 inch and 4 inches deep. They crossed through villages, gardens, tall walls, and even hedges. Some of the markings even came to a dead stop on one side of a haystack. The tops and sides of the haystack were undisturbed, but the marks continued on the opposite side of it. Many also noticed that these tracks led directly to the front door of some of the homes, as if the creature was waiting for something or someone. Then the creature would pass on to the next house and the next. Some were even seen crossing over the rooftops and continuing on the other side. These marks were reported in more than 30 locations across the region. If these were the marks of one single creature, it would have traveled between 40 and 100 miles in a single night. Which that is wild and hard to make sense of.
Yeah.
The route was indirect and meandering. They went roughly from Exeter in the north to Torquay, 25 miles south, and then 12 miles west of that to Totnes, and not necessarily in that order, but overall it was roughly 40 miles. And the wandering around in each area meant it could have covered up to 100 miles in total. On the day that the marks were first discovered, many people had the same idea. Let's trace the footprints, and later cross-reference the marks with others who had also traced them in different areas. Unfortunately, no one had tracked the hoofprints for more than a few miles at most, so it's not clear if the trail was linear or even created by one creature across the entire region. As for the marks themselves, most were about 4 inches long and 3 inches wide. The tracks seemed to have been made by a biped, which would rule out donkey tracks. The stride was sometimes very small, anywhere between 8 and 16 inches per step, and many were single file. Some were so straight that they looked like the tracks of a creature hopping on one leg. The snowfall, rain, wind, and ice from the previous night might have distorted the tracks in several areas. The thawing and refreezing of the snow could have also distorted the tracks. And considering that the country people were familiar with the local wildlife could be expected to easily identify trails left by animals, many were puzzled why these specific tracks had concerned so many of them. Only a few days had passed, and by February 13th, locals were already mentioning the hoof marks belonging to the devil. Of course, we go straight to the
God
devil.
or the devil.
God, devil, Bigfoot, nah, skip over him.
Yeah.
Skip over any other type of...
Have there ever been any reports of Bigfoot having cloven hooves?
I don't think so.
That would be kind of badass.
That would be kind of badass, yeah. Some articles in local newspapers even suggested that the tracks might have been made by a monkey who escaped from a menagerie. Others tried to convince the public that these hoof marks were made by a wide variety of animals, including badgers, rats, swans, kangaroos, donkeys, wolves, flocks of birds, hopping mice, or even the common house cat.
They really had no idea.
No, they're just taking shots in the dark here. Much of the evidence of the panic was included in a number of letters, and these letters included a correspondence between Reverend G.M. Musgrave and Reverend H.T. Ellicombe. Many churchgoers at the time were in a panic because the devil had visited their town, so the reverends tried to calm the masses. Calm. There's no devil around here.
Yeah.
Reverend Musgrave addressed his parishioners in his church saying that the devil might cross our paths, but he does not leave a natural trace.
So it's more metaphorical.
He'll pass through you, not in front of you.
Yeah.
He assured his parishioners that the footprints must have a natural explanation. So he suggested that it must have been 2 kangaroos that escaped from menagerie in Exmouth and caused these footprints. Although the local menagerie did have kangaroos, they had not been reported missing. Plus, the tracks looked nothing like a kangaroo's. So the churchgoers were still concerned.
Yep.
What are you talking about? 2 kangaroos? I don't think so. And the fact that many believe that the footprints must have come from the devil might have been by design. Perhaps these tracks were left by humans on stilts. And those same people spread rumors of the devil coming to town. Some even accused the Puritans of trying to put the fear of the devil in the villagers. And for example, in one report, the hoof marks were found all around a local pub.
Yeah.
So some claim that the devil and alcohol must be closely related. The devil went inside the pub.
Yeah.
A biologist named Richard Owen studied the prints as well, and he claimed that they were made by a badger. The badger had been forced to forage in people's gardens because of the cold weather, but the marks looked nothing like a badger print. Another man claimed he had followed the footprints found on his property, and they led to a giant toad.
All right.
Okay. Maybe lay off the pipe.
Yeah,
all right. Giant toad.
Giant toad is out in the middle of winter, hopping around. Never seen that before in my life.
Yeah. Too many drinks at the pub. Another odd hypothesis came from the book Devil's Footprints by G.A. Household. It suggests that the tracks were from an experimental balloon that had 2 shackles tied to the end of its ropes that hung beneath it.
Wow.
How do we get to balloon?
Right. There's actually a much longer story to this, but it wasn't even worth it was ridiculous.
So this balloon's just like dabbling into the snow.
Yeah, somehow it's just going, and it has just enough like flotation in the air that it's just coming down softly every few inches.
And not running into a tree, not running into anything it can be popped by.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about 40 to 100 miles.
Yeah, of a single balloon with shackles on it. I'm not buying that one.
Others have suggested that these are the marks of alien creatures, maybe even UFOs or even sea monsters. But, we're just grasping at straws here at this point. We have no idea. I think aliens make more sense to me than a balloon.
A balloon, yeah. I could buy that.
I want to meet the guy who said balloon.
Yeah. It's like, wait, guys, I swear, hear me out.
It was a balloon.
Yeah, and that was, the dude wrote a book about that, too.
All right, the balloon theory.
Yeah. But you know what? No matter how many options were given, the locals continued to refer to these marks as the devil's hoof marks and the devil's footprints. You know what I like about this is they often say any, good ghost story is actually really reflective of the region that it comes from. So I think the fact that this region was harping on it being the devil so much says a lot about the people there and their concerns. Like that's what they were obsessed with.
It makes you wonder about their church leaders.
Exactly.
What kind of messages are they preaching on Sunday that everybody's so paranoid about the devil?
Fears that they have. Yeah.
This to me looks like it could even be a freaking bird.
Yeah, they had given like countless animals of what it possibly could be, but
it's like a goat or something.
Yeah. And they were cloven, right? So people were even saying, it's just a donkey, but they couldn't tell because, it looked like bipedal.
Yeah.
Like someone was just walking on hind legs. But since many of the reports were cloven hooves, many pointed to the devil because depictions of him are often half man, half goat with horns and wings sometimes as well. And I found this interesting because his appearance is not described like this in the Bible. Did you know this? This depiction of the devil doesn't even show up in medieval or Renaissance images of the devil either. So where the hell does this come from? I actually had some fun going back and looking into this. It's believed these depictions were inspired by other mythologies. Have you ever heard of like a satyr? It's like a goat-like devil.
Yeah. Yep.
Sometimes they have like big penises and stuff. That's the satyr. Well, this look of the devil wasn't really popularized in Christian portrayals until the 1800s. Which is around the same time that these hooves appeared in the snow around South Devon. So is that a coincidence? Maybe not. Oddly, a similar report of bipedal hoof marks have been noted in Scotland around 15 years earlier, as stated in 1840 on the front page of a British newspaper, The Times. It said, quote, "The print of the foot in every respect is an exact resemblance of that of a foal of considerable size, with this small difference perhaps, that the sole seems a little longer or not so round. But as no one has had the good fortune as yet to have obtained a glimpse of this creature, nothing more can be said of its shape or dimensions, only it has been remarked from the depth to which the feet sunk in the snow that it must be a beast of considerable size. So this wasn't even an original thing, really. This was coming from Scotland 15 years earlier. Maybe that tale had come around to the folks of South Devon. But these trails were rediscovered again in Girvan, Scotland in 2013, but that one was believed to be an April Fool's hoax. Anyway, on the day of the South Devon discovery in 1855, some locals tried to track down what created the prints with only a few hours of the first discovery, and some traveled for miles. In Dawlish, a group of armed tradesmen followed the tracks from the local churchyard through several other villages for about 5 miles. And typically trackers, they can find evidence of some fur or droppings. That's usually how you track an animal, right? But this group found nothing, which is peculiar. 2 villagers on the opposite side of the River Exe traveled through a field where they found 4 oblong globes. They looked like whitish excrement, about the size of a large grape. This was found near the hoof marks. And is it a coincidence now we've referenced poop twice throughout this episode? We might find a way to reference poop in all these stories if we give it a shot. But some researchers in the same area noticed that the marks started and stopped in certain areas in the middle of fields. They wondered if they were left by a creature that could take flight, possibly. Like if you remember, we covered the Jersey Devil back in the day.
Now the devil has wings.
Yeah, so what if it walked for a little bit and then it just took off, and that's why they couldn't really find a direct path across all of it. When more reports came in, many began to believe that the region had been visited by the devil himself, appearing one night and then vanishing by morning. For the next 40 years, several more witnesses would add more details, but some of these details might be inaccurate or exaggerated because this was way after the fact. But one of these reports mentioned how the hoof prints alternated at huge but regular intervals, and they also noticed a mark that looked like it had been left by the tip of a crutch stick. So some have pointed to maybe people were walking on stilts awkwardly to balance themselves.
Yeah.
So they were putting these hoof marks as a prank or something like that. But when the tracking group followed the markings to a dark forest, according to the witness, bloodhounds had been sent in. They apparently tracked down the mysterious creature, but returned to their owners terrified with their tails tucked between their legs. They refused to return to the dark woods. But since the markings obviously are long gone by now, no one will know for certain what the hell created these trails. It will most likely forever remain a mystery. Some assume it was simply wildlife whose markings were disturbed by the odd weather of the night, but many believe that the trail must have been left by a supernatural being that visited their villages in the dead of night.
What do you think?
I am not sure, but I do like to think that back in this time, things could be so much more romanticized and exaggerated and scary and mystical. There was just this mystery of what actually is out there.
Yeah.
The world's become so much smaller with science, and we could just, we can identify every little thing down to its atom, right? Where back then it was just these cloven hooves, we can't explain it. Oh my God. The next town over also saw the same thing. And they start talking oh my God, it's the devil. It gets everyone in this hysterics. I think really at the end of the day, that's probably all it is.
It's mass hysteria.
A bit of mass hysteria going on.
It's like some beautiful bird that's getting mistaken for the devil.
Yeah, that missed migration by a little bit, and it's just trying to make its way through. I don't know. Who knows? I also could think it would be a prank. I think a few guys got together and was okay, I'll go through this town, you go through the next town.
Right.
We'll head back. We'll be asleep by morning, and then we'll see everybody freak out the next day. I could kind of see that.
It's like the early days of the Freemasons.
Yeah, right.
It's some fraternal group that's
right.
doing this, trying to scare people.
And I mean, the fact that the pub was covered in Come on, maybe they just got loaded, got their little stilts on with their canes, and then they tracked it.
What if it's like some criminal group? That's like operating, some organized crime group that's operating through the pub,
trying to scare the hell
trying
out
to
of
keep people out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Or it's like something cryptid maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It could be an extinct animal that doesn't exist today. I mean,
true.
Who knows? I am extremely grateful for this next sponsor because they have really changed the way and the quality at which I sleep at every night. Helix Sleep is truly, and I'm not just saying this because they're sponsoring the show. I really, really love Helix as a brand, as a company, but I think their product is superior to all of the other mattress companies out there. There's so many these days that you don't know where to turn, but you can trust Austin and I that we are not just saying Helix is the best. It is the best mattresses on the market, and for the price, you're getting a truly luxurious mattress that is right for you.
Yes.
And maybe you already have a mattress that you really like. They also have toppers to go on top of that mattress you already have to just make it that much better.
I have a long-loved mattress that I've just
He loves this thing.
Yeah. I have had it for over 10 years now. I'm afraid to get rid of it, but I put a Helix topper on it. And it's like brand new. I love the thing now. It's awesome.
And I've been convincing Austin that it's time to let go of that 10-year-old mattress and turn to the Midnight Lux Helix mattress. This thing is the best mattress. If you want my personal recommendation, if you're looking for somewhere in the middle of soft and firm, the Midnight Lux is just this beautiful sweet spot right in the middle.
Yeah, Josh actually, before we got into this whole episode, Josh actually thoroughly convinced me that this is my future. And you didn't have to press me that hard to get there, because it feels like the mattress kind of sells itself, because I think the best advertisement for a mattress is just someone who owns it.
Yeah, and I've slept on mattresses that are arguably more expensive and claim to be more premium, and I'm being completely honest, Helix has got it beat, and it's at a much lower price point. They've figured out how to make the perfect mattress over there at Helix, and you will love it. And you can find the right one because they have this beautiful quiz. It takes 30 seconds to get matched to your perfect mattress based on how many people are you sleeping with, the type of sleep you want. Are you back sleeper, side sleeper? I've got the Helix Midnight Lux on every bed in my house, and everybody who comes over and stays is like, God, got the best sleep on this mattress. What is this mattress? And I tell them, Helix is really, truly the best brand out there. They're the most awarded mattress brand. They give you free shipping and seamless delivery. They even give you a 100-night sleep trial.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you have 100 nights to try it out. Make sure that you love it. And I'm really excited because Helix now has a kids mattress, which perfect timing for coming out with this, because my daughter is very close to transitioning from the crib to a big girl bed, and a little nervous about that. I'm not going to lie, because she's contained
that's
at
a
night.
lot of, that's a lot of freedom.
That's a lot of freedom for her. But I want to make sure that she's getting the best when it comes to the mattress. And Helix Kids is two-sided. It has a flippable design, which is great. So it's got kind of different firmness levels that you can flip over and you kind of rotate. Plus, it's nice too, because sometimes kids wet the bed. And so in the middle of the night, if the bed's all wet and they still need to sleep, you just flip that puppy over.
I'll deal with it in the morning.
Hose it off in the morning. It's stain and water repellent. It's naturally hypoallergenic, and it uses certified material. So I'm excited for my daughter to try out the kids mattress here soon. What's not to love about it? You want to up your sleep. You want to lights out the proper way and wake up feeling refreshed. Then you need to get yourself a Helix mattress. And right now you can visit https:/helixsleep.com/lightsout and take advantage of their Labor Day exclusive partner offer. The whole site is 27% off. That's helixsleep.com/lightsout to take advantage of that special Labor Day sale. 27% off. They've got mattresses, they've got bedding, they've got frames, they've got pillows. Their pillows are great too.
Yeah.
So they got you covered. Check it out.
And they have your sleeping future that awaits you. Go.
But this leads us to one of our larger stories today, and that is the Curse of the Hope Diamond. This one
really
is
cool.
very interesting. A lot of history to this.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a 45.52 carat deep blue diamond that has been long beloved. And it's a notorious piece of jewelry for hundreds of years. I mean, this thing is probably the most famous piece of jewelry of all time.
It is in the Smithsonian today. That's how big it is.
Makes sense. But it's also considered one of the most cursed objects on Earth, with a very long, painful history shrouded in paranormal mystery. It's considered one of the most beautiful jewels ever made, and it's been called many names in many different languages, including the King's Jewel, the French Blue, the Tavernier Blue, but most know it as the Hope Diamond. And despite its name, it has brought death and despair to many of its owners over the years. Since its discovery in the mid-1600s, the gem has been stolen at least twice, and it has had countless owners. Many have had odd, disturbing, and even fatal experiences with this gem. And after the chaos, it eventually found its place in the Smithsonian in 1958, where it remains to this day. In the 17th century, it was first extracted from a mine in India. The details are kind of unclear around this, but a French merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier brought this uncut diamond in 1666, and it was about 115 carats at the time, uncut.
That's huge.
That's big old fat watermelon diamond, basically. Yeah, that's a big diamond. Some reports claim he or someone else stole it from a statue, where the gem was apparently one of the statue's eyes. Either way, he ended up with it and cut the gem before naming it Tavernier Blue. And as the story goes, when a religious leader discovered the gem was missing from the statue, he placed a curse on whoever possessed it. Apparently, Tavernier came down with a horrible fever, and when he later returned to India, he was attacked by a pack of wild dogs. He later died in 1689 in Russia and was regarded as the most consequential diamond dealer of his age. So, death number one, potentially. Tavernier sold the diamond to King Louis XIV of France in 1668 for the equivalent of 147 kilograms of pure gold. He recut it.
Also, that is an insane amount of money, just to put that in.
147 kilograms. What is that in pounds?
Gold? I have no idea.
I gotta know. 147 kg to pounds. That is 324 pounds of gold.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Only
about $10.1 billion.
Is that what it would be worth? Oh my God. Well, he recut it and then often wore it around his neck, naming it French Blue or Francis Blue. He later died of gangrene. His superintendent of finance, Nicolas Fouquet, he was seen wearing the diamond on occasion, and some believe he was the real man in the Iron Mask.
Which, if you know that story, that it doesn't end well for this guy.
No. But he was banished from France and sentenced to life in prison for the misuse of royal finances and public funds. He died after 15 years in prison. The gem then made its way to King Louis XVI and was worn by his wife, the famous Marie Antoinette. Famously, both were executed after the French Revolution, and many believe their fates were sealed the moment they came into possession of this cursed diamond. A close friend of Marie Antoinette and a member of her court, Marie-Thérèse Louise, also wore the diamond. She was killed in the massacre of September 1792 during the French Revolution. Brutal times back then.
Oh, yeah.
Reportedly, an angry mob hit her over the head with a hammer, decapitated her, and disemboweled her.
Ooh.
Whew. Her head ended up on a pike for all to see. Man,
Brutal.
it's just hard to even wrap your head around those days.
Yeah, the French Revolution was nuts.
But after this, the diamond went missing for some time. Various political factions in France in 1792 blamed each other for the theft of the French crown jewels. Many assume it was stolen during the Revolution and smuggled to London. It later reappeared about 20 years later. Allegedly, it was once in the possession of Wilhelm Fals, a Dutch jeweler who cut the massive diamond even further, down to about 45 carats. This is the cut gem that can still be seen today, but it was regarded as a butchered job because it lost nearly 23.5 carats.
Yeah, what an idiot.
Yeah, what's he do?
This beautiful gem, I'm going to just shave it all off to recut it again.
This recut is when it became the version of the diamond we see today. In 2005, the French Blue and the Hope Diamond were confirmed to be the same gem. According to legend, Wilhelm's son murdered him, stole the diamond after it was recut, and then ended his own life. Through a series of ownership changes, the gem was eventually renamed the Hope Diamond after the Hope family possessed it in the 1800s. May Yohe, who was once married to Lord Francis Hope, claimed that it caused their divorce. One of the patriarchs of the family, Henry Philip Hope, died when he was young, and his family sold it to pay off his immense gambling debts. It changed hands several more times through the next century, and in 1908, Sultan Abdulhamid II of the Ottoman Empire bought the diamond for 400 grand, which at that time, it would be worth 14 million today.
Crazy.
Not a cheap sum there.
Yeah.
But he later lost control of the Ottoman Empire during a military revolt, and he sold the stone only a year after buying it for a loss of $320,000, or about $11 million today. A Greek merchant bought and sold the gem in 1910 to a famous French merchant named Pierre Cartier. According to legend, the Greek merchant then drove his car over a cliff, and some stories claim that his wife and child were also inside the vehicle.
Cartier then reset the gem and sold it to a woman named Evelyn Walsh McLean. She was a socialite in Washington, D.C., and her husband, Edward McLean, who he owned the Washington Post. So some big names here. Evelyn fell in love with the gem when she first saw it, and she was known for having an obsession with jewelry. But she and Edward tried to back out of the deal after realizing the gem had this cursed history. And they also might have just used this as an excuse to kind of renegotiate the price, possibly to around $180,000, which is about $6 million in today's money. And they still went through with the deal after trying to return it to the dealer, and Evelyn even later said, quote, "Bad luck objects for me are lucky." So she kind of just embodied this thing and went along with it. When the sale was finalized, there was apparently a clause in the paperwork that stated it was, quote, "the customer's privilege to exchange goods in case of fatality."
Damn.
So since they were so paranoid about this, they actually had a clause in the sale to put that in. So if someone were to die from the gem, they could exchange it for another piece. Evelyn never exchanged it, but many people died. Stories claim she wore it for decades and loved it. She was seen wearing it at parties and social events. She would even misplace it at parties and then ask the children to play the game Finding the Hope. Sometimes she let her Great Dane wear it around his neck. She later, after she was a bit loose with it, she later hired a former Secret Service agent to guard the diamond. Her mother-in-law and son suddenly died. Her son was only 9 years old when he was struck and killed by a vehicle. And this was 7 years after the purchase of the Hope Diamond. Reportedly, both Evelyn and her husband struggled with alcohol and drug abuse. Edward was often caught up in several scandals. He sold off the Washington Post. He lost all his money and left Evelyn for another woman. He was later declared legally insane. He died of a heart attack in a psychiatric hospital. Evelyn's only daughter, Evie, also died of an accidental overdose of sleeping medication. So, is this tied to the Hope Diamond? Who knows? Despite everything, all the tragedy and loss, Evelyn continued to wear the jewel. She wrote about the gem and the superstition of the curse in her memoir, saying, quote, "Do I believe a lot of silly superstitions, legends of the diamond? I must confess I know better, and yet, knowing better, I believe. By that, I mean I never let my friends or children touch it. Call it a foolish woman's fetish if you like. After you had said so without contradiction, let me say that I have come to feel, not think, that I have developed a sort of immunity to its evil." I like what she says here. "What tragedies have befallen me might have occurred had I never seen or touched the diamond. I have sensed enough to know that fortune tellers gain fame as prophets by habitually predicting probabilities. My observations have persuaded me that tragedies, for anyone who lives, are not escapable." So it sounds like through everything, she's like, this isn't the diamond. Life is just rough. And I kind of like that sentiment. But regardless, she apparently still had the diamond blessed by a priest very early on, because she kind of did buy into this curse story.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah, just in case. And apparently in one story, lightning flashed and a crack of thunder rang out as the priest blessed the gem. In 1947, Evelyn ended up dying from pneumonia at age 60, which is really young, in large amounts of debt. Her trustees then sold the gem and her entire jewelry collection to a jeweler in 1949. She had some pretty expensive pieces in there. They looked very extravagant. Harry Winston was the buyer of this jewel, and he toured around the country with various jewels before donating this piece to the Smithsonian in 1958, where it has remained ever since. And upon its arrival, many were worried that accepting a cursed gem into the Smithsonian would bring turmoil and tragedy to the country at large. Do we have the Hope Diamond to blame for where we are today in U.S. history? Maybe. Legend has it that James Todd, the mail carrier who delivered the gem to the Smithsonian, was later plagued by misfortune, and in the years that followed, he suffered 2 car accidents, causing a head and leg wound. His wife died of a heart attack, his dog died, and his home was nearly destroyed by a fire. When he was reached out to for comment on the curse of the Hope Diamond, he said, quote, "I don't believe any of that stuff. Perhaps I'm actually having good luck. Thank God all 4 children were outside instead of in those rooms."
Hey, I like that perspective.
Yeah, same.
Because he's like, if I really had bad luck, then everybody around me would have died.
Right, exactly. The National Museum of Natural History claims the diamond is not cursed.
Because of course not. They don't want to be a haunted attraction.
Right, exactly.
They don't want, because they know that people would be coming, which maybe they like that. More ticket sales.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? But they clarify, this is on their website, they clarify that the curse is actually a recent part of its history, beginning in the 20th century. The jeweler, they kind of accused Pierre Cartier, if you remember, that's the guy who sold it to Evelyn. He's been accused of kind of embellishing the stories as a sales tactic that eventually got Evelyn to buy this piece. He was kind of known for that, so I could see he had his hands on this huge gem, and he's like,
a Cartier? This. Having sales tactics?
Yeah, right. Yeah, never heard of that. The museum also claims that May Yoe, blaming her divorce on the gem and embellishing other stories in a book that she wrote, also contributed to the tale of this curse. Even the New York Times inaccurately portrayed its cursed history. Many doubt the accuracy of the havoc it's actually caused on its owners, but its infamous reputation often supersedes the gem itself. Although, I mean, if you look at this thing, it's unreal. And it's reportedly insured for $250 million.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Although some have really called this cursed stone priceless. It is considered one of the most visited pieces at the National Museum of Natural History. It is quite a sight to behold.
I mean, it's the necklace that it's been made into now is extremely beautiful.
They've put it in like different pieces over the years too. And if you could find all the different displays that they've done, it's crazy.
Yeah, apparently Evelyn was actually from Leadville, Colorado.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I knew there was a Colorado tie to the Hope Diamond.
Oh, okay, nice.
I've seen it.
Have you really?
Have you seen it?
I've been to the Smithsonian.
That's in D.C., right?
It is in D.C.
That's awesome. You've seen this.
Did I go to the Smithsonian? I think I did. Yeah, I think I did see it. Now that I was wondering if I did, for some reason I thought, did they go on tour with this thing?
Maybe they do.
I
think
either
it
saw
does
it,
go on tour
does
sometimes.
Has it ever been at the Denver Museum?
I don't think it's ever been to the Denver Museum.
I don't think so either. No. So I must have seen it in the Smithsonian when I was in DC.
You probably did.
I think I saw this though.
Yeah. It wasn't the most impressive thing at the museum for me, to be honest. I really liked the bone hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, weird. I'd take you more as like a diamond guy, but
all I saw was just something that I could never afford. So
and why on earth would you want to have possession of that?
Yeah, right.
Talk about a security risk.
Yeah. But you're saying you're more into the dinosaur bones and stuff?
Yeah, the dinosaur bones and just other stuff.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have a like full skeleton of like a dinosaur at my house.
And like it was cool to see. It was big, but I mean like it didn't live up to the hype, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
In my I'm not a diamond expert.
Well,
I don't know.
I think you're really pissing a lot of people off.
Yeah,
a lot
Daniel.
of people really
Yeah, because you know what? Those dinosaur bones were planted here by the devil 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So those
Well,
aren't
to
even real.
some,
That makes
dinosaurs
them
never
cooler.
existed.
Yeah,
It's the biggest perpetual hoax in
It's fake.
human history.
Yeah.
The
This
devil-
was to test my faith. That's why they were planted here.
If the devil placed dinosaur bones in the sand, that makes them even cooler.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
real haunted artifacts.
Yeah. How did they get that mammoth down there? Yeah.
It's way cooler.
Yeah, well, we got one more for you.
Oh, yeah.
The Screaming Skull. Sound like a terror. Oh, that's your. Oh, whoa. Damn, that was like I thought you were going pterodactyl there for a second.
Yeah, more dinosaurs.
Well, this is another physical manifestation that comes from traditional British folk tales, and the true origins of it are completely unknown. Although, if I had to guess, it'd be devil.
Yeah,
Hell.
it's gotta be.
It's always
gotta be.
the hell or devil. Beddiscombe Manor is a house in the small village of Beddiscombe. Surprise. It's the one manor they have there, so they named it after the town. But it's surrounded by farms and small fields, and the vale where this house sits is known for its haunting tales of a notorious screaming skull. That's terrifying.
Oh, boy.
The manor, built in the late 17th or maybe it was the early 18th century, became infamous for housing the screaming skull. And according to legend, the skull forever remains inside of that home. If it's moved from its resting place or if anyone attempts to bury it, a blood-curdling, infinite scream will sound off from the skull's location.
Sick.
Damn. This is the artifact Danny really wants. It's believed that if this skull...
I can't sleep at night, please, God.
But it's believed that if the skull is ever removed from the house, the entire manor will just collapse to the ground.
Whoa.
And whoever had moved it would be subjected to a horrible death within a year. Throughout the years, the interior design and furniture of the manor have changed, but it's believed the skull has remained in the exact same spot, possibly hidden in the house's attic near a chimney. According to the book The Haunted Homes of Family Traditions of Great Britain, in August 1883, Dr. Richard Garnett from the British Museum first heard about the skull, and he then took his daughter and a friend to visit the manor to hopefully capture a glimpse of this screaming skull. One afternoon, they visited the manor and planned to move the skull to a churchyard cemetery.
All right.
Hoping to break whatever paranormal spell was upon it. We must rid this skull from demons. When invited inside the manor, they asked the lady of the house about the skull. Hey, where's that screaming skull at? She didn't want to say a whole lot. She was very reserved, saying that she'd only recently moved in and didn't know much about it. But she had agreed to take the skull as part of the house sale. She eventually agreed to let the doctor, his daughter, and a friend see it. So they headed up the old oak staircase to the top floor of this manor house. The lady then led them to another cupboard door, which revealed another steep, winding staircase leading up to the roof. Upon one of the staircase steps sat the skull staring at them. They were allowed to pick it up. They were allowed to look at it. It appeared weathered and old, and seeing its shape and size, it definitely belonged to a human. But the lower jaw was missing, as well as the rest of the skeletal frame. The lady of the house then told them the story of the skull's origin. She said the skull belonged to a slave of a Roman Catholic priest, and the tale told of a priest murdering the man to cover up another one of his heinous crimes. Another version of the story she heard was that the servant killed the priest out of revenge and later died. Either way, the man stated before his death that his spirit would not rest unless he was taken to his homeland and buried there, and he never was. He was apparently buried in Beddiscombe several different times, but piercing screams came from each burial plot, which absolutely terrorized the village and the manor. The noises caused the manor's doors and windows to shake and rattle, and bizarre noises and voices could be heard all throughout the house. The body was dug up time and time again, and they tried to bury the remains in different places around this region in hopes of shutting the skull up, but nothing worked. After so many exhumations and burials, most of the remains were lost in the process except for the skull that was now hidden away in a secret rooftop stairwell. Dr. Richard Garnett and his daughter offered to bury the skull once again in 1883, and they offered to stay overnight to make sure everything was okay afterwards. But the lady of the house refused and asked them all to leave. Legend has it that the skull was never buried in the man's homeland and still sits in that manor to this day. Some claim the skull has been walled up or locked away in the attic, for an unknown amount of time and can no longer be seen.
Ooh. Another tale of this screaming skull suggests that the former owner of the manor was a man named Isaiah Pinney. Isaiah was scheduled to be hanged, drawn, and quartered for his involvement in the failed Monmouth Rebellion of 1685. He bribed officials to spare his life, but he was deported to the colonies somewhere in the Caribbean and forced into indentured servitude. In a bizarre turn of events, he eventually became a plantation owner on the Isle of Nevis. Damn, the colonists just wreaking havoc and being property owners where they shouldn't be. But years later, one of Isaiah's descendants returned to the family manor in Bediscombe, and he brought a slave back with him. This slave later died from an illness and asked to be returned to his home for burial. He said that if his wish were ignored, the house would have no peace. The man's request was ignored and the screaming ensued, since he was never given a proper burial, and the nearby crops also failed. Once it was even thrown into a pond, but the screaming could still be heard, especially by the family specifically, and they realized the only place the skull would not scream or cause terror was up near the chimney in the attic of Bediscombe Manor, where it remains to this day according to legend. It's believed that even if the skull were sent to a proper burial, the vengeful paranormal energy would continue to plague the manor. The true origins of the skull are unknown, but many tales place it somewhere between the 15th and 17th century, and the legend became popular by the 19th and 20th centuries. Some stories of the Screaming Skull don't involve the manor at all, like the story of Anne Griffith in Yorkshire. Anne was one of three sisters, Frances, Margaret, and Anne, who was the youngest and also named Catherine, but she used her baptismal name of Anne. Their father was Sir Henry Griffith, builder of the Burton Agnes Hall, which was completed in 1610. A very beautiful hall. A decade later, Anne had fallen in love with the building. She considered it the most beautiful house ever built. One day, she was returning to the hall from a nearby village where some family lived about a mile away. And on her way home, she was attacked by a gang of men and left to die near St. John's Well. Passerbys found her and took her back to Burton Agnes Hall. Her injuries were fatal, but on her deathbed, she said she wanted to stay in the hall after death. She told her sisters that she would not rest, quote, unless I, or part of me at least, remain here in our beautiful home as long as it shall last. She begged them on her deathbed to be buried in the home.
In one final gruesome conversation, the sisters all agreed to keep Anne's head on the table in the hall. But after Anne passed, they didn't keep their promise. They buried her, skull and all, in the local churchyard cemetery. And immediately after her burial, loud crashes, slamming doors and pounding walls filled the hall. Objects would even fly across rooms, and large pieces of furniture would scrape across floors. The sisters then witnessed the phantom of their sister Anne gliding through the rooms at night. The sisters consulted the vicar, who told them that they should have kept their promise to their sister. So they returned to Anne's burial plot and exhumed her corpse. After cracking open her coffin, they saw her head had somehow removed itself from the rest of her body. And although her body was still in a state of decay, the skull had been stripped of all flesh and muscle, down to the bone. The sisters took the skull and placed it upon a table in the hall, and the paranormal activity in the building finally stopped. Except the following owners of the house tried to bury the skull again. Endless bad luck tortured the family until they reluctantly returned the skull to its spot inside the house. Every October, Anne's apparition can still be seen wandering the halls, and her presence is especially felt in the Queen's Chamber to this very day. According to legend, Anne's skull is still somewhere inside Burton Agnes Hall. That's a story, man.
That's a story. I like how, can you imagine being on your deathbed and be like, at least bury a part of me in this home? And the sisters, the end conversation is like, yeah, we'll keep your head here. And then you have to think about, well, once you pass on, are we going to have to like remove your head and keep your head?
Yeah, like how are we going to do that?
They probably had that discussion, and then they were like, let's just bury her whole out in a cemetery.
But in death, she's like, nope.
Yeah.
Bring my head back to where I
having
want
it. Yeah.
It's wild though that there's just a human skull hanging out.
Yeah. I also love the idea of just an infinitely screaming skull. I don't know why. That's just cool to me.
It's pretty terrifying. I feel like that whole idea has been used in movies and stuff like that.
I think they even made a movie like The Screaming Skull based on this.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's a creepy one, man. But you got to let us know what you think of these physical manifestations or unexplained phenomena. Which one are you most creeped out by? We want to know. I think for me, I mean, the Belem Faces is just, that one is probably my favorite of the bunch.
Yeah.
Because it's just such a weird
and they can't outright debunk it.
Yeah.
Like, I like how all the theories around it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that would make sense if they're doing that. That would make sense. But then just the fact that they can't really figure it out, I think is awesome.
But I also do think items can be cursed, and over generations can just cause havoc like this. I mean, another one that we should explore in the future is King Tut's curse.
Yeah, that's talked about.
Wild one.
So I think, haven't you guys done that on Mile Higher?
Yeah, on Mile Higher, we covered it a couple years ago, and that one blew my mind because there is no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
That the Egyptians definitely knew what they were. They protected the shit out of their pharaohs and burial grounds, and I think there's something to be said about it. If you disrupt any sort of anybody's final resting place, especially one with the ability to protect it even in death, with curses and hexes and whatnot, is always a interesting one. And then there's just so much death and so much crazy shit that happens after the fact that it's really hard to just deny that there's no connection there.
Yeah. And I think that's good payback because were they Brits mostly going into King Tut's tomb?
Yeah. It was mostly Brits. There's a few others as well, but
I mean, no offense to
there's
Brits,
a lot of people disturbing the tombs there, though.
Notoriously, it's like stealing artifacts and stuff like that from centuries past, millennia past, and like getting away with it. I'm like, everyone should have been cursed. Like, imagine just going.
But it was even just like archaeologists and stuff,
right? Yeah,
they were just like excavating it,
just checking it out. Yeah,
and not necessarily like busting open sarcophagi and things like that, but just excavating the tomb and doing like research on it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely wild, and the Hope Diamond kind of reminds me of that. I do think there's a little bit of lore, and a little bit of like folklore kind of wrapped up in it, not quite as sinister as King Tut, but it is also one that I'm like, well, there's a lot of bad energy surrounding this object,
right?
That even if it wasn't necessarily, it was involved with people who you wonder, because it all comes down to intention, right? Around these objects, like what is the intention behind the object, and what is the what's the true purpose that you have this Hope Diamond? And it was all these very, very wealthy elite people over the years that had possession of it as it passed through time. But yeah, that's another one that I'm curious about. I know a lot of people dismiss it, but I think there could be something more there too.
I do like the idea just of that story where it's Tabierne, the guy, there are accusations that he just stole the diamond. He maybe didn't even pay for it because they don't actually know like the exact records of how he came into possession of it. So I do like that where it's just like, and every owner since then can just get totally screwed over because we're stealing like this. Now, God knows if you evaluate a gem, like that original gem that he extracted or not extracted, that he maybe stole or maybe bought, I wonder what the value of that would go today. Like if they have the what's cut now and it's insured for $250 million. What do you think that original?
You have to think it's worth over $1 billion. Yeah, that's crazy.
Something insane, right? So I do like that. You just, if he did pilfer that and totally steal that stone, should be cursed, really, just as a form of poetic justice.
Right. And I mean, just so much time has passed. There's so many hands that could have went through. There's so many things we probably don't even know.
Yeah, the fact that it was just unaccounted for at some point, but then I don't even know how they determined this, but in 2005, they actually determined it was the original stone from way back, which Lord knows how much technology
seriously
has to go into that process.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's something that only will continue to go up in value too.
Right.
You know, every time they got to renew that policy, they got to reevaluate the worth of that, you know? Yeah. Wild though. Definitely let us know your thoughts on these. Which one do you believe in the most and which one do you believe in the least? Drop it below in the comments if you're watching here on YouTube. But also thank you to all of our audio listeners across the other platforms. If you enjoy the Lights Out podcast, make sure you're subscribed or following us wherever you're listening or watching from. We really appreciate it. We love all of you, and we'll see you guys next week. We got an absolutely insane, probably one of the most, this is saying a lot too on Lights Out, but one of the most truly disturbing cases of all time, and it takes place in Austin's neck of the woods, kind of hometown.
Yeah, this one was surreal going into because one of the abductions is my hometown.
Yeah,
it was
all these places,
3 blocks from my house. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's unsolved.
Yeah.
Unsolved string of killings and abductions. It's on a whole other level. So we're going to get back to working on that, but we'll see you guys next week. Until then, lights out, everybody.